Hello everyone, this is High Priestess Tana once again from Tana Temple Healing Works, and I'm back with part 3 of this series or this particular subject, which is talking about slavery in Detroit. So I'm gonna finish discussing the different complex situations that had occurred during this time frame. Okay, it was very critical, not just in American history, but Michigan history. Okay, and it shows that even in Michigan, slavery existed. So, and it's not to be overlooked or overshadowed, if you will. So now we're going to talk about the anti-slavery movement in Michigan. So, in 1832, the first anti-slavery society in Michigan was founded by Quaker Elizabeth Chandler in a meeting house at Adrian. Oh my goodness, excuse me, y'all. My eye is itching so bad. In Adrian, Michigan, Laura Haviland became a member of the society. The Michigan Anti-Slavery Society was founded in 1836 in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So George Batiste was considered to be the president, quote unquote, of the Detroit Underground Railroad. William Lambert, the vice president, quote unquote, or secretary, quote unquote, and Laura Haviland, the superintendent. The Second Baptist Church of Detroit, a stop on the Underground Railroad, was organized by African Americans in 1836. Freedom seekers crossed the Detroit River into Canada. Michigan became a state in 1837. See, it transitioned from a territory to a state. That's what I was discussing in the last video, because back then they weren't necessarily states, quote unquote, yet. They were still like colonies and territories, if you will. Okay. So, and the Constitution of Michigan banned slavery. Henry Bibb, who freed himself from slavery, became a resident of Michigan in 1842. He was the son of an enslaved woman and her master. Wow. He began to explain the ways in which enslaved people were treated in the South, and encouraged people to break your chains and fly for freedom. Wow. In 1847, raiders from Kentucky came to Cass County and tried to kidnap at least 9 formerly enslaved people. Adam Crosswhite and his family, former enslaved people in Marshall. Wow. This is Marshall, Michigan. And it's a city in, it's a city that contains about 6,822 people according to the U.S. Census. Okay, back in 2020. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, former enslaved people in Marshall were among those that tried to capture Marshall Crosswhite. Well, oh, wait a minute. They tried to capture, Marshall Crosswhite affair. Wow, that is crazy. Wow, I've never even heard of him until now. That's interesting. Okay, he apparently was a mixed race man because he was the product of an enslaved woman and her master. Wow. The Personal Liberty Act of 1855 was passed by the Michigan legislator, which made it harder for enslaved people to be captured and returned to slavery. Sojourner Truth, I know you heard of her, a former enslaved woman and abolitionist, moved to Battle Creek in 1857. By the time that Sojourner Truth moved to the Battle Creek area in 1857, she was a free woman, published author of The Narrative of Sojourner Truth, and a national speaker for the anti-slavery and women's movements. The Emancipation Proclamation was issued by President Abraham Lincoln in 1863. It freed enslaved African Americans in the Confederate States. The first Michigan Colored Infantry Regiment was formed in 1864 to fight in the Civil War. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution in 1865 banned slavery. Wow, that was deep. Now, what I want to do now is switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about Black Detroiters. Okay, so we're going to talk about let's go back a little bit. We're going to talk about pre 1865, which is before the abolishment of slavery, right? So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about present day. All right, so before 1865, among African Americans who moved to Detroit from the American South before the end of slavery were George and Richard de Baptiste. They attended classes. I just mentioned about George de Baptiste. But they attended classes taught by Reverend Samuel H. Davis, the pastor at the Second Baptist Church in the city. Marcus Dale attended the African American or African Methodist Episcopal Church led by Reverend John M. Brown and others. In the days before the Civil War began, Detroit was an important site on the Underground Railroad. I just talked about that, in which local people aided the passage of fugitive slaves to freedom. Its location, just across the river from Canada, where slavery was abolished in 1834, made it a destination for many seeking freedom. Although Michigan was a free territory, some refugee slaves wanted to go over to the border to prevent being captured by slave catchers. Others settled in Detroit. Okay. Local blacks involved in the Underground Railroad included Samuel C. Watson, who later opened a drugstore in Detroit, William Whipper, Richard and George de Baptiste, and others. William Lambert, Laura Haviland, and Henry Bibb were also involved. In the 102nd Regiment, United States Colored Troops of Michigan and Illinois was recruited in large part in Detroit. Blacks in Detroit had to face rising tensions from ethnic whites before and after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued in January 1863. A Democratic Party paper, the Detroit Free Press, supported white supremacy. I was just talking about them in the last video, and opposed President Abraham Lincoln's handling of the war. Ain't that about some shit? In addition, it consistently presented issues of the day as problems due to competition with free blacks. What the heck? Protecting threats to white men's power and forecasting worse labor problems if the mass of slaves were freed. Wow, really? In March 1863, a race riot broke out. There go another riot. I was talking about riots, like there were a lot of riots that broke out in Detroit. The Detroit race riot of 1863 occurred on March 6, 1863 in the city of Detroit, Michigan during the American Civil War. Wow. At the time, the Detroit Free Press reported these events as the bloodiest day that ever dawned upon Detroit. Damn. It began due to unrest among the working class related to racism and it cut off there because it's like a note annotation or like it, yeah, just an annotation. Okay, we'll talk about that again. I'm going to have to make a whole nother video for that because, honey, that's a lot to dive into or delve into at the moment. That's a whole different, like, topic. Where was I? Okay. All right. Catalyst by the arrest of a mixed race man for allegedly molesting a white girl. What? A white mob attacked blacks in their neighborhood, resulting in 2 deaths, 1 white and 1 black. Numerous injured, 35 houses and businesses destroyed, and more than 200 people left homeless. Damn. As a result, the city established its first full-time police force. Wow. Didn't know that. I did not know that. And wow. This is deep. Wow. All right. So from 1865 to 1890, after the war, African Americans formed an important political bloc in the city led by Watson, George de Batiste, John D. Richards, and Walter Y. Clark. Saginaw's William Q. Atwood. Oh, he was born a slave in Alabama. He was freed in 1853 in a will of his white master and father. Okay, yeah, I can see that he's a mixed race man too. Was an important figure outside Detroit who influenced the city's African American politics as well. Wow. And this is the other parts are talking about, and this is a whole different topic too. Talk about redlining and the housing crisis and the Great Depression and whoo, Lord have mercy, public housing, slum removal, all that stuff, predatory inclusion. Then they had a 1943 riot. That's beyond what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna pivot back to I want to talk about a man named Bill McGraw. So let me see, did he found this? Let's see. Bill McGraw. There are a few things about him that I was reading about that I really liked. Some stuff that I also liked some stuff that he covered. Yeah, this is a lot. Where shall I begin? Oh my goodness. Yeah, Bill McGraw. Oh, so he must be the co-founder of this website called Deadline Detroit. Okay. Because they said this piece by Deadline Detroit's co-founder was originally published in 2012. We republish it as recent events cast the spotlight on this aspect of U.S. history. Okay. So they actually say the same thing, that this is a piece of U.S. history that's rarely talked about. It's not talked about as openly as slavery in the South. But things were popping up here when